No political system survives on structure alone. A constitution, a monarchy, a democracy, a republic, none of these possess life in themselves. They are merely frameworks. The animating force is always the character of the men who operate within them. The Roman Republic endured not simply because of its institutions, but because generations of Romans possessed a psychological disposition toward duty, discipline, and civilizational continuity. The American Republic did not function in the 18th and early 19th centuries because of parchment barriers alone. It functioned because the political class and the population shared a broadly similar psychological foundation, a belief in restrained hierarchy and responsibility. When those psychological foundations dissolve, the structure becomes hollow. A republic governed by men who think like oligarchs become an oligarchy. A democracy governed by men who think like mobs becomes mob rule. A monarchy governed by weak men collapses into faction. The system reflects the mind of its advocates. Political systems are psychological mirrors. When the population becomes fragmented, resentful, or incapable of long-term thinking, the institutions inevitably mutate to reflect those traits. This raises the uncomfortable question of modern politics that if the character of the people determines the fate of their system, then institutional reform alone cannot solve civilizational decline. The deeper question becomes what kind of men must exist for a stable political order to survive. And then the argument, is the durability of a political system determined primarily by its institutional design, or is it determined by the psychology and character of the people who operate within it? I think it's an obvious answer that comes from this, which is that political systems are tools. As Jessica said in her response to this, there are no evil things, only evil people. So political systems are tools. They are not outcomes. They are things that we can use to reflect the will of a nation. And the political systems are always the state. The state is always the mechanism for which a nation represents itself in an administrative form, in some centralized capacity, administrative capacity, where we relinquish our rights to the extent that we extend we extend a part of ourselves into a centralized state as a collective entity that manages the affairs for all of us. And if those affairs are not reflective of the will of the nation, if they are not a direct reflection of the people that are giving that to that state, then the state is not operating correctly. It is not functioning properly, and thus we have civilizational decline. The people make up the state, and the people form the state, and they reflect their will through the state. And so when the state does not do these things, properly reflecting the will of the people and made up of the people, then it is no longer their state. It is no longer their government. It is a foreign government. And so the psychology of the people who defend a foreign government versus the psychology of people who are defending a native government to themselves is very different. The former implies that people are slaves to that entity, that they are defending something that does not reflect their will. And the second one is, the latter is the one that is proper beneficent governance that does reflect the will of the people adequately and properly to the structure of those people. And so it's very obvious to me that it is the psychology of the people that dictates whether a political system is going to survive or whether it is going to emulate all of the other civilizations that have declined into nothingness or been taken over, conquered by foreign entities, and transmogrified into something else.